My name is Dr. Simon Poole. I am a family physician in Cambridge, in England. I have done some research into the Mediterranean diet, but primarily my interest is in communicating to the general public and in particular to my patients about the benefits of the Mediterranean diet. And my experience over many years is of advocating the Mediterranean diet to patients and seeing them become much more healthy and enjoying their food and benefiting very much from what is probably one of the most healthiest diets in the world. So the Mediterranean diet is a very ancient traditional diet. So it is not just a passing fashion. It is something that is here to stay and has won the US News Award for the best diet for health for the last 3 or 4 years because of the mass of evidence over the last 30 or 40 years in particular, showing that it is reducing the risk of many diseases and most chronic diseases. So it is a dietary pattern which is associated with excellent mental and physical health, the science for which is now very well established. What an interesting question. Well, I think the king within the diet must be extra virgin olive oil, which is at the heart of the Mediterranean diet, and no single ingredient has such importance in any diet in the world. I guess the queen is vegetables, and I am going to cheat a little bit on my answer and say all vegetables because of the different regional variations of the Mediterranean diet. All the way around the Mediterranean, the common feature is extra virgin olive oil and vegetables. Of course, whole grains are also very much part of the diet, giving low GI carbohydrates, which are full of plenty of fiber and vitamins. And then perhaps if I have to have a fourth, maybe we could say nuts, because one of the most important studies, the PREDIMED study, showed that a handful of unsalted nuts is very highly beneficial as part of a Mediterranean diet. So the majority of the science is based around 3 nuts, hazelnuts, walnuts, and almonds, which were part of the PREDIMED study. And there is a lot of evidence for benefit of all of these. Peanuts, which are of course not nuts, they are actually legumes. There is not so much evidence of their benefit, and often they are used as snacks and with added salt and so on, which is not so healthy. So I would go for those 3 nuts as the healthiest nuts as far as we are aware. But there are probably nuts from other parts of the world which also give very many health benefits, but perhaps which have been less studied so far. Well, so extra virgin olive oil, and I must stress really extra virgin olive oil, is a uniquely common feature of all the variations of the Mediterranean diet. And it is said that in some of the most ancient Mediterranean diets of southern Italy and of Greece, perhaps as much as 40% of calories come from fat, and perhaps as much as 80% of the 40% calories of fat come from extra virgin olive oil. So there is no single ingredient which has so much importance. And now we're beginning to understand that it is not just the healthy fat in extra virgin olive oil, but it is unique compounds called polyphenols, which have very powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. And knowing that the majority of chronic diseases are associated with chronic inflammation, being aware that we can reduce this inflammation in our bodies through the regular consumption of extra virgin olive oil full of its polyphenols, which incidentally we can taste also, giving elements of pleasant bitterness and pepperiness in the oil, we know that these are particularly beneficial for health. So I would recommend that although olive oil itself is a good, healthy monounsaturated fat, it is really the extra virgin olive oil which has the majority of these polyphenols because it is an unrefined and unprocessed product. And the polyphenols, which are so good as anti-inflammatories and antioxidants, we can taste in a very good extra virgin olive oil with the pungency and the pepperiness and the bitterness. And these levels of polyphenols are particularly high in very excellent quality extra virgin olive oils, which have been harvested perhaps quite early, although that gives the farmer less yield, less oil, but they're harvested early, and the olive oil is protected during the processes from the enemies of ultraviolet light and excessive heat, and time where oxygen can get to it. And so if one can always choose an extra virgin olive oil with some authenticity, some sense of a pedigree, a sense of the pride of the producer or of the grower expressed on the label, one will know that one is getting an excellent quality product, which will be rich in these polyphenols and have the taste qualities to match. So that is a very good question. Of course, olive oil is a fat, but there is no evidence that the regular consumption of extra virgin olive oil contributes to people putting on weight. In fact, the opposite is the case. And in fact, there are many studies showing that following the Mediterranean diet, rich in extra virgin olive oil, it actually decreases weight and is consistent with a very healthy weight. There are some particular features of combining extra virgin olive oil with carbohydrates, for example, which makes the sugar rise, the glycemic rise, as we call it, of those sugars much less pronounced. So in fact, consuming carbohydrates with extra virgin olive oil, like pasta with extra virgin olive oil, is an excellent way to reduce the sugar levels after a meal. And also it's been shown that extra virgin olive oil helps satisfaction, helps satiety, helps us feel full during a meal so that we consume fewer calories overall where we have a meal which is rich in extra virgin olive oil. And it is the type of fat anyway, which has much less likelihood of putting on weight in terms of abdominal weight, which is potentially so harmful. So the answer is no, there's no relationship with putting on weight, and it is a very healthy product, which actually can be associated with an overall dietary pattern, which actually has a very healthy weight attached. Cheese can be very healthy in moderation. We have decided some years ago that saturated fat is bad for us because it is associated with raised levels of cholesterol. However, none of us just eat saturated fat. We eat food, and let's hope we enjoy food. And cheese is a much more complicated food than just simply consisting of saturated fat. In fact, in the Mediterranean, often cheese is consumed from goats and sheep's milk, which is which has saturated fats in it, which are less harmful in terms of cholesterol. But also, being a fermented product, cheese and indeed yogurt are very beneficial for the gut microbiome, and they have other positive health effects. So we can eat cheese in moderation, I think, without being too concerned about cholesterol level, as long as it is part of a very healthy overall Mediterranean diet. Yes, it is fine to drink wine daily, as long as it is in moderation, as long as it is a glass or two, a small glass or two. Restaurants nowadays give you a very large glass. And in fact, when you ask, that is actually 250 mils, which is a third of a bottle of wine. And one would not go into a restaurant and if they offered you some wine, say, yes, I'll have a third of a bottle, please. So we need to be careful about the amounts that we consume, but maybe 100 or maybe 200 mils for a man maximum per day is a healthy amount of red wine to drink. Red wine also contains polyphenols, which are these plant compounds which have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. And it has been shown that red wine in particular is helpful for heart health. Of course, the way we consume alcohol is really important as well. If we consume alcohol with a meal, our metabolism of that alcohol, the way in which our body processes the wine is very different from if we drink alcohol when we're not eating it and consuming it with foods. And of course, In the Mediterranean, it is a long-standing tradition to enjoy a glass of wine a day, but always consumed with food and generally in convivial company and enjoyed in that way. And that is very different from the kind of way in which alcohol is consumed in other parts of the world. And so the way in which wine is consumed as part of the Mediterranean diet in moderation can be very good for us, particularly because these wines are often rich in polyphenols. And in fact, there is one story I must add from Sardinia, where there are areas of Sardinia where people often live to the age of 100. And some researchers believe that perhaps it is the Cannonau wine, this particular grape, this particular wine that's very rich in polyphenols, that maybe contributes alongside the Mediterranean diet and the lifestyle to the longevity and to the exceptional number of centenarians in that particular area of Sardinia. Yes, herbs and spices, which are very much part of the Mediterranean diet, can be very good for health. In fact, now that we are aware that much of the Mediterranean diet's benefits is probably through the polyphenol antioxidant and anti-inflammatory compounds, if you look at herbs in terms of those anti-inflammatory compounds in herbs, they actually pack the maximum concentration of any foods, although of course we consume them in relatively small amount to add flavor to our foods. So things like rosemary contain rosmarinic acid. And in fact, many of these compounds have effects like a small dose of aspirin. And as a physician, if I have somebody who has had a heart attack or a heart problem, I will often prescribe them a small dose of aspirin. And maybe it is some of these anti-inflammatory aspirin-like properties, particularly in herbs such as rosemary, which perhaps again are contributing to some of the benefits of the Mediterranean diet on cardiovascular health. And we could talk more about the role of other spices and herbs, some of which of course have been imported into the Mediterranean area as the Mediterranean diet has evolved over the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. Spices from the east came along the spice route into places like Venice, the melting pot of the cultures in the Middle Ages, and were added to the Mediterranean diet to give spices and flavors, but also to give health. And many of the ancient physicians from all over the world have recognized that spices and herbs can contribute to good health and have often been prescribed by medicine, by ancient physicians from the classical times. So my name is Dr. Simon Poole. I'm a physician from Cambridge in England, and it's a great privilege to address people in Japan about the benefit of the Mediterranean diet. And I'm a great advocate and enthusiast for the Mediterranean diet, its benefits for health, and encourage you all to introduce many elements of the Mediterranean diet and perhaps combine it with some of the elements of the very healthy traditional Japanese diet to gain great benefits from a fusion of the benefits of the Mediterranean diet with some of your own traditional ingredients and recipes.